Welcome to the KBB Review podcast. I'm still Andy Davies, and today we're talking all about the one thing we all wish we had more of, sales. But despite us all wanting more, in the world of independent KBB retailers, is sales a bit of a dirty word? You know it all comes down to that in the end, but I'm sure many of you would rather describe yourselves as kitchen or bathroom designers rather than salespeople. Design is the fun and rewarding part of the job, and it's also a bit of a USP for independence. But does creativity take precedence or even get in the way of getting the sale over the line with the margin you need? Should sales techniques be as important as design ones? Our regular panel of Trevor, Liz, Nick and Justine are waiting to get stuck into this one, but first. The KBB Review Retail and Design Awards is now just weeks away, so if you want to be in the room with the best KBB retailers, designers, suppliers and influencers, then you need to get a wriggle on and book your tickets. It's on March the 2nd at the Hilton Birmingham Metropole, and that's the Monday night of the KBB show. So if you're coming to network at the show in the day, then make the most of it and come to the awards in the evening and represent your company at the biggest party in the sector. You can find out the when, where, why and how much at kbbreview.com/awards. That's kbbreview.com/awards. See you there. Okay, here are our four retailers who are all about the sales techniques, smashing her targets. It's Liz Pantling-Jones from Lima Kitchens in Milton Keynes. Hello, Liz.
Hi, Andy.
Thinking outside the box, it's Nick Warrington from Stuart J. Warrington in Macclesfield. Hello, Nick.
Hello, Andy.
Picking off the low-hanging fruit, it's Justine Bullock from the Tap End near Cardiff. Hello, Justine.
Hello, good morning.
And cutting his own throat, it's Trevor Scott from RFK in Rugby. Hello, Trevor.
Morning, he says, gurgling through the blood.
Well, what a picture we can all paint in audio. So, look, we've talked a bit before about the, I suppose, the contrast between sales and design, but I wanted to get into the details a bit today because it's been triggered in particular by a comment from the survey we did before Christmas. We surveyed retailers, of course, lots of people have seen that. We also asked suppliers what they thought of retailers and in particular how they could improve their business, to which one anonymous supplier said this: "They need to sell more. Sales and design both go together, but there are too many pompous, egotistical peacocks spouting design theories. A true business owner knows that sales are the key and the single most important objective in any business." So, which one of you peacocks wants to go first? Are retailers guilty sometimes of putting design over sales? I'm going to start with you, Justine.
Oh, start with me. Yeah, of course. I think sometimes if you're from a design background and you've set up a design business, you want that to be the standout, part of your company, I guess. But it's really difficult to say, isn't it, whether you think design companies like ours are setting that above sales. I don't think so at all, because we're small fry in comparison to suppliers. So we know how important sales are, more so than, reps, I would say. Because we have to pay the bills. So of course we know how important sales are. So yeah, I think that's a bit cruel. That's a bit of a cruel comment.
I mean, look, they suppliers by their nature want you to sell more, don't they, Nick? But do you think that you spend more time on the interesting projects than you do on the profitable projects sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably more on the sales side than and design. Design is important, but I do have a focus on making sure that what we produce design wise makes us a good profit. What I do find is, and I call them, when we do these big projects that are outside our normal field, shall we say, I do call them vanity projects, because we love doing them because they're different and they're interesting. But generally, when you look back at them at the end of the day, they probably don't make you as much profit as the more run-of-the-mill projects where everything goes a lot more smoothly. They do the bigger projects, unless you're set up to do them day in, day out, hoover up an inordinate amount of time. So yeah, I can see the sense in the comment.
And Liz, vanity projects, are you guilty of that, do you think?
On occasion, but that's when I've been given the go-ahead to do so by my client. I think that comment made me really laugh, because as Justine said, we all pay the bills. We all know we need money. We all know we need to be closing sales. It's just, as a small independent business, how do you focus on what your USPs are and how do you deliver that? And what's your client's focus? So some clients may come in wanting a sales kind of dialogue. Some people may want a more design focus. And as a good salesperson and business owner, you need to identify which one of those is required for that individual and deliver upon that. And at the end of the day, I think everyone here is essentially a middleman rather than producing. So the only thing that defines us is our service. And yeah, that's how we therefore get our sales. So it goes hand in hand.
Trevor, you've got a team of designers, if you like, across 3 showrooms. How much do you say to them or talk to them about sales as opposed to service and design? You know, sales techniques, closing, get them over the line, stuff that you would associate with the word sales.
Well, we have a mantra within the business, which is that we're design-led but sales-driven. And for all the reasons that have been, quoted ahead of me, I make sure the rest of the team are very aware that if we don't hit the numbers in any given month, then if we haven't broken even, we've made a loss, and that's to be avoided at all costs. The ambition of the business is to thrive and survive. So the sales team or the designing team are very focused on achieving their targets. It doesn't always work out that way because we all know the vagaries of the market. So you do your best and sometimes you fall a little bit short. Other times you do your best and you find that you've had a staggeringly good run. By having a number of designers and across a range of showrooms, it does mean that generally speaking, when one's up, another's down, and it levels itself out overall. What we do try to do, and frankly not as well as we probably ought to, is put some concentrated effort into closing techniques, removing the client from the marketplace by securing a deposit. We do depend far too much on the client saying, yes, you've ticked all the boxes, you've answered all of our questions, we have no objections to purchasing, we're ready to go ahead and place an order. I'll give you a call next week when we finally made up our minds. Now, at that point, we should be going in for the jugular and closing the order, and all too often we don't, because we've taken the client's word for it that they are actually going to give us the business. And we don't want our clients to give us the business, much as in the nicest possible way we do. What we want to do is take their business off of our competition. And we are as guilty as many other of the preening peacocks in this industry of failing to ask for the order at the right moment. And I do want to work on that.
But you still call them designers, though. You don't call them
Yes.
sales designers or salespeople. You call them designers. That's
Yeah,
what their job
absolutely.
description
And
is,
as I said right from the top of that statement, we're design-led but sales-driven. So as Liz has said, if we do everything else right, if we listen to the brief, if we get the design right, if we hit the budget, and we answer all of the potential objections, then there's no reason why the client shouldn't place their business with us. They already know that our service is better than anybody else's around us because we've got an amazing reputation that goes back for decades. So at that point, the order should plop into our laps. And most of the time, and often enough, it does. We get the order. But there are certain members of the team who sit there and wait for it to land, as opposed to going out and, if you like, asking for it in the right way. And asking for the order isn't, that's very good, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, can I please have your business? I mean, that's a bit blunt. There are many, many different and more subtle ways of asking for the order than that. But the end result is they get the credit card out and give you a deposit.
I think over the last decade, the market has changed quite a lot. So with products being so easily accessible and us seeing a younger market who is more comfortable with the tools in order to access directly from suppliers or online or at lower costs, it's naive to think that we can remain as just salespeople. We have to evolve and we have to deliver more than just selling products. Because if I just want to buy a product, I am going to buy it online. I am therefore potentially, as a retailer, going to fall into the trap of being the one that displays a product but never gets anything from it. So I have to offer something more than selling products. And you also need to be able to identify the needs of the client and cut out the forceful sales about a certain product so that the client gets something that is most suitable to them and, again, feels like they're getting more than just reading what's online.
But like Trevor said there, though, there is technique to getting the deposit, getting people over the line, closing the deal, all those kind of things. So do you look into that? Do you want to upskill with that kind of thing? Or is it a case of we've done all the work up to that point and they will say yes?
So I have a background of selling timeshare I've got people's information off of streets, those annoying people that go around and can I have 5 minutes of your time? I have done direct sales for kitchens. I am classically trained, if you like, as a salesperson, and I do not want my business to be that. Although those techniques do obviously play a part, I don't want my business to be that. That's not, if I smell that, I run a mile if I'm buying something. So I don't want to deliver that. But we have a structure and a formula that means that we ask for the sale. And when that first inquiry comes in, we explain to the client what the process is, and we explain to them, we expect to get your deposit. At this point, we've done the work. We will ask at every point, and that's the end goal.
Do you go along with that, Justine? You're obviously a very creative outfit. Do you avoid sales technique at all costs because it's a slightly dirty word? Or do you think that there should be some sales technique involved in every transaction, no matter how much design and creativity has gone into it?
We have a team target. So we have like a team target and a team commission structure. So everybody is like in the team is pre-motivated to close a sale because it benefits everybody. So for example, we had a big presentation on Saturday where Zoe did a 4-bathroom presentation for a client from Wiltshire, actually. They came down from Wiltshire. And that was a team effort at the end, just to make sure that we had everything, that we could get them all the information for every single bathroom, enough for Zoe to close the sale on Saturday. So she was off on Friday and the whole team pulled together to make sure she had every bit of information that she couldn't finish by the time she finished on Thursday. So Saturday, the presentation went really well. She got the order. And the first thing she did, I was on the phone, and the first thing she did was tell the rest of the team on our WhatsApp. So I think for us, we approach sales in an old-fashioned sales way, really. It's very much like a commission-based team effort. And then that really works because nobody's left short, nobody's neglected, everybody pulls together. And for the goal of getting the sale, but we don't sacrifice the design because that's who we are at heart. So, we all have to work, we all have to pay our bills, we all have to make a living. So we just try and do it in a design-focused way, but we all are very aware that the sale is the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing about the Preening Peacock statement that he misses is design as a sales tool. Design acumen, that's basically a USP of independent retail, isn't it? It is part of the sales story. But I get the idea of being distracted by design sometimes, or getting so sort of caught up in the enjoyable part of your job, which is design, that you would perhaps spend more time on one than another. And obviously every hour you spend on something is money, isn't it? So I do see the point of distraction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that if you've got a team or a business or anything really that doesn't have information at the head. So if you're telling your team, right, this month we need to sell this many bathrooms, or this month we need to close these particular clients, then there's no real room for procrastination or staying on a project too long. I think that if you're leading it in such a way that everyone knows that what the goal is, that's great. And oftentimes we can incorporate enjoyable design time into that month. So we do like scheduled design meetings, we have a real focus on design. We go to the trips and we go to all the things. So we really focus on design, but everyone knows the most important part. And I think that is led from the top. So if they see the owner or the manager or the senior designer wasting time on a design and enjoying it, then of course everyone else is going to think, oh, I'd like a bit of that. I'd like to do that design all week rather than doing 3 presentations. So I think it's about how it's led from the top. I'd love to know who has got loads of time to spend on peacocking and not selling. Like who actually has that time? I'd love that.
It's Nick's vanity projects, you see, isn't it? Look, let's come to you, Nick, because I'm wondering whether the multiple retailers, Wren, Magnet, all the DIY sheds, they lead on sales. It's very much a 10% off this, 50% off that, and they clearly judge their success individually by their targets. You see it on LinkedIn all the time. I'm a £1 million Wren designer or whatever it is. But they go in so hard on it. Do you think that's one of the reasons why sales is a bit of a dirty word for independents, because they want to sort of distance themselves from that perspective of the market?
I think so. And I mean, it's interesting just hearing everybody else. I think that we're quite a fortunate little bunch here that we've all got quite a reasonable grip on having a sales focus. But, I've had plenty of conversations within the industry where that sales focus isn't quite there as much, and that people are talking more about the design, and they think that once they've delivered the design, that's almost the end of it. And I think that there can be a little bit of snobbiness about the multiples and the way that they sell. And I'm not saying that we should sell like that, because I don't sell like that. I would say that my sales process is slower than perhaps the larger multiples are. And I have certain techniques where I suggest that maybe that's not the route that a customer may want to go down, marry in haste and repent at leisure and all that. But I think that we can also learn from them in what they are very good. Although we might not like the process, the point of having a process, however you choose that to be, is a really important thing in achieving your sales, and understanding that the design is the nice and the fun bit, but beyond that, you have to be able to sell and to keep that sale moving forward and maintaining the momentum within that sale. So, one of the things that I've done over the last couple of years is really focus on my sales process, and making sure, for example, that I'm not leaving space or a lot of space between going and seeing a client, that design being presented, the quote being presented, dealing with amendments, and just keeping the momentum in the sale. And sometimes we think, well, I've done this great design. Mrs. Smith's had that design. She liked it. She'll have it. And we just leave it for them to come back. And I think the important thing is just learning those skills about, and it's not complicated, but learning the skills to be making sure that you are following up. Because the reality is, particularly for someone like me who is in the mid-market, and we do come up against the multiples, is that if we're not chasing and seeing if they're coming back in, you can bet your bottom dollar that other independents and multiples are doing, and that's where you lose out, because you're not reacting as quickly as they are, and that speed and momentum does work.
I mean, I suppose it's getting the balance right between a constant conversation and aggression, isn't it? No, it's the aggressive sale. It's the constant feeling that someone's on you all the time. That's the bit that people don't like. So look, Trevor, say you're recruiting, right? You're looking for a new designer. Would you choose someone who had a fabulous portfolio of work, or would you choose someone who said, I did £1 million with my last job last year?
It's a moot point. History has taught us that, in general, those that have come to us with bags of experience end up being the worst fit into the organisation, whereas those that we've nurtured and trained up from a basic admin role maybe initially, and guided and led them into a sales and design role, they've always developed into the best designers, the best company person, and as a consequence, good salespeople to boot. People that come to us with loads of experience also come loaded with baggage, and much of the baggage they carry with them isn't baggage that we want in our business, and that baggage can take many forms: attitude, technique, lack of design ability, overconfidence and over-aggression in terms of trying to win the order. And all of these are things that just don't fit in with the ethos of the business, because as I said right from the top, we still want to and consider ourselves to be design-led, but want to take people's business, want to win orders, but we don't want to win the order at any cost. And the cost of working with salespeople first rather than designers first tends to be our reputation, and that's a price that we're just not prepared to pay.
But surely, Liz, you can fix the design, but you can't teach people the technique, if you know what I mean. If they're good at it, they're good at it. So would you have the £1 million salesperson or the portfolio of fabulous work?
It's so tricky. We've done both, and as Trevor's already said, fallen into the issues with both. The most success we found is hiring someone in a design role who has a small amount of knowledge, because my ability to train someone from scratch, I've found out, is poor. So having that core knowledge is really helpful to get them kind of running and then guiding them down the route that we want them to go. And I am probably, in terms of a sales manager, if you look at it in those sense, I'm probably quite harsh, because that's it. First 6 months for the probation period, you have to deliver, and that's deliver on design, being able to learn and adapt, and close. If you don't, you are gone. And I've learnt the hard way by thinking, oh, they're getting there, they're trying and keeping someone on who can't deliver. So yeah, now I'm quite strict on you deliver or you're gone.
Justine was saying there they have a kind of group target that they all work towards. Do you have the same kind of structure?
Yeah, so we're a team target. So if we take someone on and they can't deliver and it's costing us, they're burning through leads, they're not designing, they're designing and closing, but they're not specifying properly. So that, you know, the margins fall in when we're delivering the project. All of these things are taken into account and it affects every other member of the team. So if you can't carry deadwood, as it were, in those circumstances, you need someone who's got integrity, who has an eye for detail and design, willingness to learn and adapt, and be able to close and know what that next step is for that client. Is it a phone call? Is it a meeting? Is it them going to get their other 2 quotes and come back in 2 months' time? What is it? Where are they? And where do we fit?
Justine, what would you do if you took somebody on and they were just a fabulous designer? They would just produce some fantastic work, and it was, you know, everything they did was spot on, and you were so proud of everything they produced, but they wouldn't say boo to a goose, if you know what I mean. They were terrible with talking to the clients, or they had no idea about sales. What would you do?
Well, what can you do, really? You can't keep somebody like that because you're not just a speculative kind of in a situation here. It's not college, it's not university, it's not a hobby. So I think you have to have both. It's impossible to do one without the other for us because we're design and sales. Every single person is design and sales. So yeah, you couldn't keep someone that was great at design but terrible at selling. You have to have both. But I do think if you're an excellent designer, then naturally, if you're passionate about your project, you should be good at the sale. So it have to be like a real, an unusual crisis of confidence, or perhaps our environment where we're all together and we're all listening all the time. You know, they can't work under those conditions of feeling like under pressure. But I think you'd suss that out in the interview, because presumably if they couldn't speak with you in the interview, that's an indication that they can't speak to the customer. Like, it'd be really unrealistic circumstances to nail an interview and then be terrible with customers. It's the same skill set. So I don't think that's realistic, although I've never been in that position where someone's been an excellent designer, excellent at the interview, and then terrible at the job. I don't know.
But how much would you address the sales skills in an interview, though? Would you be a kind of, sell me this pen kind of approach? Because somebody comes to you, particularly if they're a design graduate or they've come through the design skills training, would you address the sales thing when you were in that recruitment process?
Most people that I know that run their own business, when they interview, it's all about gut feeling, isn't it? So they go by gut feeling. Sometimes that pays off and sometimes that doesn't. But recruitment and employing people is a whole different podcast, isn't it? It's like one of the worst elements of owning.
Oh, we're going to do it. We've got to do it, Justine. Don't worry.
So I do think that, I think that you go by your gut instinct, I guess. And you go by whether they hold your interest at interview. So whether they're making the right amount of eye contact, the right amount of questions. You know, what I don't like is if you're interviewing someone and all they do is answer your questions. It needs to kind of be a bit two-way. I think that's a good indication that they'll be good at selling. If you're just asking questions and they're answering, that's almost like alarm bells, isn't it? Because they're not like a two-way interactor, if that's the thing.
A two-way interactor. Brilliant. Nick, I know you're there on your own, but would you ask about sales in an interview if you were recruiting?
I might not do the sell me this pen, but I do think that when you're recruiting, because it's not just a design role, you're not sat in the back office, and sales is a critical part of the role. And so you have to bring it up, and you have to be clear that they will have responsibilities that they are measured against as part of that role within the sales, and you expect them to be comfortable with that. So yeah, I would definitely be asking that.
Right, so let's go to training. Trevor, do you do specific sales training for your staff? I mean, do you know whether you get a guy in with a flipboard and he's talking about sales?
No. Should we? Yes. And I think this is an area where we fall down. Sometimes you're just too busy being busy, and you lose sight of some of the important things. And training in across the whole range of subjects, training is so important, and sales training very much at the forefront of that. And no, we don't do it at the moment, and yes, we should. And yes, I'm going to do something about that as part of my New Year's resolution, is sales training. And what brought that to the top of my mind was last November, we had the deadline for the appliance promotion from a certain well-known German brand, and I put the email out to everybody saying, that's it, phone calls to all of your clients that are on the promotion, tell them the deadline's Saturday, get them in, close them down, take the order, this is it, it's over and done with Saturday. If you don't win the order, then you've lost the order. And we came back from that with 6 out of 7 closes. The 7th one was £35,000 worth of order that was promised on the Wednesday, coming in on Saturday to deposit, lost on Friday. And it's because the designer / salesperson didn't go out with his credit card machine on the Wednesday evening and say, right, you ready to go ahead? Okay, I'll come and take your deposit off you. It was a lack of closing, a lack of final sales technique, and a belief that the customer was going to come back in on the Saturday as promised, and they didn't. And that really, really bugged me, and it's not happening again this year.
Liz, would you do formal get a guy in sales training? Like you say, you've been through a lot of this already, I'm sure, and sat in a room and, with a guy with a flip chart. Would you do it for your business?
I would never put anyone through that. I can't. A little bit of a story. So Matt worked for the direct sales company first and said, I've got someone who would be great, but just do not send her on this training. And I'm so glad that they listened to him. But the whole handing the 3 pen, getting them to say the same thing 3 times, handing the pen over 3 times for them to mark the plan. I'm never going to do that with my client. I'm never going to advocate it. And in terms of kind of training, we've been working on a training manual and process, and we have quite a tight system now. So at every point, it's just part of who we are as a business. We're asking for that sale, and that's where people fall down. They don't ask for that sale. They don't get to the point, because we have a limited free service where it's, okay, so would you like me to send you the deposit invoice for us to put the project in, or do you want the design development fee? Because I'm not doing any more work without being paid. So it's just built into who we are as a business. So I don't think getting someone else in to do that would give us a huge amount of benefit.
Do you worry, though, that maybe one of the reasons why is because you have such bad memories of very sort of aggressive sales technique training, right? But if there was training that was much more specific to this market and was much more about soft closing, or those kind of techniques that were much more appropriate, then you might be more willing to do it. What you've described is all very David Brent, isn't it? It's all very...
It really is. I think because both Matt and I have gone through that, we've kind of put those processes and those mechanisms in place. And we spend a lot of time talking to peers, and I will quiz people on how they do things. So working out what that balance is and if anything needs to shift. And I just think we're quite forthcoming in talking about those techniques and inquisitive about what would work for us and what wouldn't. So I don't think that's something either of us would maybe let go of. Maybe it's a control freak thing. I don't know. But I don't think that for us, that would be something we would go down.
Justine, how about you? Would you get someone in to teach sales?
Yeah, I love training. I love things like that. Anything, because even if you pick up one small thing, it's one small thing that you had that you didn't have before. So all training, webinars, the lot. We love it. We love it.
So have you done sales ones?
We haven't done a specific sales one, mainly because the ones that I've found that are of excellent caliber are super expensive. If there was a way that we could get someone in to do the sales training, I would. But, it has to be affordable, because obviously you have to pay for these things, So I don't think it's a major gap that we have. I don't think we've got an issue at all. I think we're actually pretty excellent at it. So I've never needed to commit to the cost of getting an external person in, but I would if we needed it, and I would if there was one that was a bit more cost effective or tried and tested.
I'm afraid we're going to have to wrap it up, but as always, I think we've solved this issue once and for all. So well done to all of us. That's all sorted. Thank you as always for your time, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.